Hello, friends, and welcome to Mindful Mutiny. Today, I'm going to be talking to Yvonne Posada. She is a shaman with Pachamama Sacred Paths, which is a sponsor of the Mindful Mutiny podcast. And what she brings in talking about the late stage of the feminine life and the way in which the feminine is so important, and that stage of life is often filled with women having doubts about themselves, about their bodies, women having doubts about their place in this world, women having a crisis of identity and who they have been, who they are. She's gone through it, and she's gone through it the hard way in a lot of ways. And what she does is she brings powerful medicine of hope and incredible self-belief and tying to the feminine spirit that she does with Pachamama Sacred Paths during retreats. And she talks all about the importance of femininity in the lifespan of a woman. And so enjoy this wonderful and profound interview today with Yvonne Posada. Welcome to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. I'm Jeremy, and I founded Mindful Mutiny as a podcast, a community, and a commitment to live a high-frequency life. I want to help you cultivate purpose, clarity, and structure. I'm an experienced therapist, transformational coach, former executive, and psychedelic specialist. Go to mindfulmutiny.com to subscribe to my newsletter, schedule a consultation, or just to get more information about what my coaching can do for you. If you support positivity, I'd be honored to have you as a Patreon subscriber. On Patreon, there will be bonus material and a community of Mindful Mutiny fans that believe in human potential and living a high-value life. Also, check out the link in the description for my spring store with merchandise that supports the Mindful Mutiny podcast. Mindful Mutiny is sponsored by Exponential Intelligence. Exponential Intelligence teaches you how to raise your consciousness and be the most wise, evolved, and brilliant version of yourself. See the link in the description of this podcast to learn more about this incredible sponsor. Mindful Mutiny is also sponsored by Pachamama Sacred Paths. Pachamama's mission is to facilitate individual awakening through sacred plant medicine, spiritual retreats, and ancient teachings, ultimately contributing to the collective ascension of consciousness. With over a decade of experience hosting retreats, Pachamama is distinguished by its commitment to ancient wisdom, shamanic practice, and ethical care for participants. See the link in the description of this podcast to learn more about this incredible sponsor. And now, on to the show. Yvonne Posada began her spiritual journey over 30 years ago, eventually becoming a certified yoga instructor and therapist. She's the founder of Yoga Myofascial Release Therapy and serves as a yoga instructor for Pachamama Sacred Paths. Yvonne's journey with plant medicine was a transformative path to healing from emotional and physical pain, leading her to create spiritual retreats that integrate yoga and despachos. Integrated as a hampeg and pampamasayak by esteemed Andean priests, she guides others in discovering their ability to heal their minds and bodies through deepening their spiritual connection. Through her retreats, specifically tailored to women over 50, as well as parent-child groups, Yvonne empowers individuals to transform their inner sanctuary and embrace their present moment as a space of healing and self-discovery. And so, Yvonne, this whole big bio of you and everything, can you explain in your own words what it is that you do with Pachamama Sacred Paths?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I am doing for Pachamama is I'm introducing retreats for women over 50. I myself just turned 64, and I find that women over 50, once we go through menopause, once we go through that big change in our lives where there's so much going on, during that time in our lives, our children are leaving home. They're either going to college or perhaps they're getting married or, who knows? And a lot of us, unfortunately, are also going through divorce after 50, which is even, adds more of a painful interaction in our lives where we need
Right.
something. So for women over 50, these retreats are specific so that we can reconnect with ourselves. I think a lot of women can possibly relate that through our lives as mothers, whether we work or we don't work, we give a lot of ourselves because we're women, and women feel, women love, women give. And so we spend our times really taking care of our children or taking care of our home, or sometimes both. And sometimes we give up our career in order to be able to stay home. And then after that, it's difficult to come back. And it's even more difficult when there's something else that's happened in our lives, like a divorce or when our children leave. So a retreat for women over 50 is so that we can begin to reconnect with ourselves, to find ourselves again, because we are giving and giving and giving. And then suddenly, when our kids leave or when there is a divorce, we don't really know who we are anymore. We find ourselves lost in space, lost in the universe. And even though we maybe have a lot of faith in God, we still need something to bring us back into ourselves, into really that person that we were before getting married, before having children. And so the Women Over 50 seminar is or retreat is really specifically for that, to bring us back into ourselves.
So today's discussion is going to really get into a lot of femininity. And one of the things that I recognize in the counseling that I do, and I see this a lot in the marriage counseling that I do with people, is that you have women who have children who are either right on the verge of flying the nest or who have flown the nest. And these women are in this huge identity crisis. And often it comes out in irritability, sometimes in rage. And so then the woman is both ashamed of herself in some way and also deeply upset with her circumstances in life and going through a huge physical change. And it's like what I'm kind of seeing is the woman is just having this huge crisis of what has it all been worth for me? I've raised these children. I love them. They're great. But now what am I after all of this? Because my identity was so tied up in this. And then you add this layer that has been so important over the last 50 years of women
Mm-hmm.
needing to also have a career while also being a mom. And you have women coming to this state in life and going, I don't know where I let the last 25 years of my life go. And I'm kind of upset about it. And you must see this sort of thing a lot.
I do. I really do. And I see it a lot. Um, I am also a lactation consultant. I was a
Okay.
lactation consultant for over 25 years. I was involved in the Leche League. I'm also a doula, or was a doula. And I see the changes in women happening. And one of the things that I did see is that separation that begins. I mean, it's such a beautiful connection when we have our babies. And then, as they grow, things change. But not only for them, for us, and for our family, things begin to change. And, believe it or not, one of the things that happens is that every time that a woman goes through a cycle, there is a reason for that. A lot of times, those are messages that our bodies give us about things that are happening in our own situation that we're not listening to. And so we wind up putting all those messages underneath a carpet. We hide them away. And then when it comes to menopause, all those messages come out. And that's where the rage comes in. That's where the anger comes in, because we stop listening to ourselves. So every cycle, there is a message. And because that cycle is been demeaned by society, we don't listen to the messages. But the messages are there. So when it comes to menopause, and now we're no longer taking care of children, then our messages come like, okay, here's one, here's one, here's one, and we've been ignoring those. So it's a really interesting passage that we have as women. And I do believe that that's one of the reasons why I want to do Women Over 50 retreats, because I think we need to pay attention to all those messages that we didn't listen to. And now it's time to listen to those messages.
I
Does that
think
make
that I know.
sense?
It does. And I just want to ask you to define a few things because I'm a guy. Now, because I think I know what you mean by demeaned by society, that the cycle is demeaned by society, but I want to hear from you. In what ways, what do you mean by that? And when you say that the woman's natural cycle is demeaned by society, can you talk about the ways that is that the practical woman would hear and go, yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's a really hard question. The reason why I say that now is because being involved with spirituality and being involved with the sacredness of the moon, I now understand that our cycles really are in conjunction with the cycles of the moon. And that is something that I'm just beginning to understand that I didn't understand, I didn't pay attention to before. But what I mean by demeaning is most of the time we are being told, oh, she's just PMSing, she's
Mhm.
just having PMS. And PMS is not really a symptom of our cycles. PMS is a symptom of us not listening to ourselves. So instead of saying, yes, I'm just PMSing, perhaps looking back at what am I ignoring? What is it about my rage at the present moment? What am I angry about? Is there a significance here to my anger? So that instead of them, whoever they may be, thinking we are angry, let's really bring a voice to the sensation that we're feeling. Because this sensation that we're feeling through our cycle is a message that our body is beginning to reveal. So when we ignore it and say, oh, I'm just PMSing, I'm just going to take a pill because I don't feel well, we're covering up the message.
Hmm.
And that's what I see more often as I talk to women that they are ignoring. And I started doing midwifery training as well. And that's where I learned all of this. And that was really fascinating to me. So I don't think, being also a myofascial release practitioner, we do a lot of work on women, internal work, a lot of seminars are directed towards the women so that we have women's healing seminars. And when we do this, we are really working on whatever it is that the PMS is bringing about, because there's something there that the body is saying. It's not really a symptom of our cycles. It's a symptom of something that has been ignored. So that's one of the things that is really important to bring out, that we need to have treatments for us because we are ignoring a lot of what's happening within our own with our own bodies and our own system.
Yeah,
Did I answer your question?
you absolutely did. And I'm just sitting here kind of going through this journey because in the masculine, there's so many ways in which the masculine is demeaned in society to fit into what society needs out of men. And I'm talking about from an economic perspective,
Yes.
what men need to do to obey enough to bring home a paycheck, which becomes the value of a man. Women in this, and feel free to reform what I'm saying here, have this condition where where the emotions of the cycle are demeaned to the point where women have to almost push themselves into their masculine to push
Yes.
through that these emotions, these things
Mm-hmm.
that come about through the PMS, and essentially denial of the feminine inside of them. How would you change what I just said?
I think you pretty much hit that on, what is it, the head, the
Yeah,
nail, the
yeah.
top. I always mess up these things, but I think what happens is that we are in a give and take. And one of the things that I'm learning through the spiritual teaching through Pachamama is the difference between male energy and female energy, and how we both have both female and male energy. And it's something that I didn't understand. And I think that that brings a really good point of discussion in really understanding that we don't really have to know what the definition of a male energy or a female energy is, but we need to understand that we as humans have both in our system, that we're both made of female energy and male energy. And what brings beauty into ourselves is when we are in balance. So when we have that understanding now that both our male energy and our female energy have come into balance. And what's really interesting is that in retreats, we offer male or feminine ceremonies and masculine ceremonies. And we also offer both. So the feminine, the divine feminine is ayahuasca. The divine masculine is San Pedro, and Los Niños is both male and female. So it's really a beautiful thing when we think about the difference between the two, because this is what we're trying to do. We are trying to understand ourselves from that point, from that place that we are both male and female energy. And believe me, I didn't understand this at all until I started with Pachamama Sacred Paths. I knew that there was something missing in my life, but once I understood the difference, I was able to understand that that is what's missing in our lives.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to one of the men's retreats in about 2 weeks from now. And I'm so excited about that because the last one that I went to was uh co-ed, right? And this one's for men. I'm really excited to see, what comes of this. But what I'd really love to hear from you with regard to your work with Pachamama Sacred Paths, your discovery of plant-based medicine in your practice, because you were already going the yoga route and had already been like in this world, and you're moving into the world of Pachamama Sacred Paths, which, by the way, anybody who's listening who doesn't know what we're talking about, Pachamama Sacred Paths is it's a ayahuasca church that is based in Mexico that does retreats all over the Western United States. Go ahead and Google them. We're going to have the link for them in the description of this video. And Pachamama Sacred Paths, like I said at the beginning in the intro to this, is a sponsor of Mindful Mutiny. And so the retreats that they do are something that I have experienced myself, and the ethics that go along with these ayahuasca retreats and the way that the medicine is handled and the careful way that the human beings involved are carefully handled during the medicine and afterwards, with what's called the integration, where you take the medicine and what it's done inside you, and you continue working back. When you go back to work in your regular life, you keep meeting with Pachamama Sacred Paths people by Zoom in order to reintegrate these new things that are in your life. So when we're talking about Pachamama Sacred Paths and you maybe haven't heard of it before, this is what it is. And you can find out more information on their website. And so getting back to you, Yvonne, your discovery of plant-based medicine and moving into the world of Pachamama Sacred Paths, can you talk about, number one, how did you discover this medicine, and what did it do in you that you may have been looking for?
Wow, that is a really interesting question. Um, so I'll go back a little bit in time so that we can
Sure.
understand just a little bit as to why I got into this path in the first place. And one of the reasons why is because back in February of 2022, I was diagnosed with compartmental regional pain syndrome, which is a very, very painful nerve situation where, so now I've got limited range of motion. I can't really touch my heart, and I can't really touch the back of my head.
Okay.
And I am one of those people that, because I've been involved with yoga and everything, I don't even take an aspirin for a headache. Everything is homeopathy, or myofascial release treatments, which I get often. And so because of that, my son knew that, we were also having a lot of trouble in our home at that time. So my son, my oldest son, said, Mom, I want to give you this offer. And I'm like, what offer is this? And he says, I want you to go to Joshua Tree. I want you to go there with MDMA, and I want you to go there with mushrooms. He gave me a beautifully written description of when to take things, what to eat, what to do, and what the experience that I may have, including the music. So he actually had a playlist for me. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I mean, I don't know why, but I trust him. And if he is saying this is going to be good for me, then I'm going to do it. And so I did. I went to Joshua Tree by myself with instructions, and I took MDMA, I took mushrooms, and I had a profound, profound experience. It was during that particular moment that I realized, first of all, that I love my husband very much. And that came through very loud and clear through the sacraments that I was using. And there was also the message that my marriage was not going to last. But then there was also the message that I am a good person, that my body has been changing, that yes, I can't move my arm now, but I started moving it in ways that I didn't know I even could because of that. And so it was that message of, you're a beautiful woman. You've gone through life. You've given birth to 3 wonderful children. You nursed them and you breastfed them and gave them life. And now they are, adults, and they're going into their own world. And it was something beautiful, something very profound, something very deep about finding myself as a woman who may perhaps be going through a divorce in the future. If
Yes.
not, something was going to be happening in my marriage, that things were going to be changing, they were going to be different. And I didn't know what. All I knew was that this is what the message I was getting through these sacraments was. And it was very profound. I found myself in that one-on-one with myself, accepting who I am, accepting the fact that I was getting older, that my body was changing, that I was getting wrinkles, that my breasts were sagging, that everything else was also going to be sagging at some point. In other words, coming to meet myself in the age that I was in and being okay with being that age. And that was profound. That was truly profound. So that was the first experience that I had. And then everything came to a horrible end because after that, yes, my husband filed for divorce. And, I was in that stage where, what am I going to do now? I can barely move my arm. I mean, at that time, I couldn't even bring my arm out like this without pain. So when the medicine was giving me motion that I could do, I knew that eventually I'd be able to do it, but I also knew that I couldn't do it on my own. So after I did that first retreat on my own, I guess we'd call it one-on-one retreats. I really don't know if it's the personal one. I went to a therapy on the rocks, which is where there's a clinic from John Barnes' myofascial release work. And I had a week of therapy in my arm, and I was able to move my arm a little bit more.
Okay.
So I was really, I was finding myself again, even though I was in extreme pain, and even though I was going through this horrible stage in my life. Divorce is not easy, and separation is not easy, but it's twice as hard when you can't move. When suddenly you find yourself alone because nobody's helping you. Nobody's cooking for you. Nobody's doing your dishes. You have to do your dishes yourself because suddenly your life has changed. You know,
Yes.
from one minute to another is like, okay, I'm not only injured, but nobody's taking care of me anymore. So I had to figure this out for myself. And when I went to that first, we call it treatment for the therapist, I was able to move a little bit more, even though I knew that there was a lot more to be done. I was first, for the first time ever, acknowledged that yes, this was indeed very painful, that this was indeed something that I needed help with. And so that was the physical part of it. That was the physical pain. And then after that, I went to another intense treatment in Portland at the Portland Myofascial Release Center in Portland. And I was able to reach for the toilet paper, which I
Hmm.
hadn't even been able to reach. I was able to open doors again. So I knew that I was healing, but I knew that the progress was going to be very slow. I was having a lot of difficulty even driving a car because I couldn't hold it, with my arm. I still
Yes.
do. I still have problems driving. And just recently, I also smashed my finger, my middle finger. So I don't want to point it, but I smashed my finger, and so right now I can't drive because I don't feel the safety yet of being able to grab the wheel. So a lot of the physical pain was really coming out. And then once I moved from Northern California to Southern California, my children were no longer talking to me. So I became estranged from them as well. I moved to um, Southern California without assistance. I had a wonderful friend that came and moved me. Thank God she was able to do that for me. And then I had to use my funds to help organize the house, help move the house, because again, I couldn't move. And when you have no movement in one arm and you're dependent on the other arm, then the other arm begins to give you trouble. So anyway, so that was back
Yes.
in September. And then I did a one-on-one with another shaman in I think it was December of that year. And then my daughter, bless her heart, she came here. She moved in with me. She lived here with me for a while, and she kept saying, "Mom, guess what? I found something that would be very helpful for you." And she's found Pachamama Sacred Paths. And I sat there and I looked at the website. I looked at one particular retreat, and I was hoping that she would come with me to the retreat, but she wasn't signing up. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. So I signed up to that one retreat, and that completely changed my life. I
How
noticed
brave of you. How
that,
incredibly brave of you, because this is so new. And ayahuasca is
yes.
seen as like the Mount Everest of psychedelics, and is sort of it can be very intimidating to people because they hear stories of things. And you just said, I really feel like I need a major change in my life, and what I've done so far has been helpful in opening me up. So I'm sorry, I just think that's pretty
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you. It was a challenge, but I do believe that God puts everything in front of you. So that was something that I thought, I need to do this for myself. I didn't know anything about ayahuasca. I must admit, I didn't know anything about the retreats. I didn't know anything about all the sacraments that I was going to be taking. But I thought I trusted my son to introduce me to two of those sacraments. So I have to trust that there is an organization out there that is going to come and help me also change. I was being, it's really sad to say, but my family was saying that I had mental problems,
Okay.
that I needed to see, a psychiatrist. I was
Okay.
already seeing a psychologist, but they were saying that I really needed some mental intervention.
Okay.
And sometimes you believe it, even though you know you have great faith in God. You wonder, well, why is it that four people that you lived with for 34 years are suddenly walking away from you? Is it possible that maybe you are crazy, that there is something wrong with you emotionally, that you
Okay.
do need to seek more than just psychologist? I had been seeing a therapist for years. And so I thought, by God, I need to do something. So maybe let's try this. That's why I signed up, not knowing anything, but also trusting in the universe, trusting in God. I have a huge amount of faith. I grew up Catholic, became a born again Christian, and really believe that Jesus has carried me in the palm of his hand all this time to introduce me to God through spirituality. And so to me, that was huge. So I signed up and I attended, and it was profound. It was really, really profound. Um, the it allowed me to emotionally begin to release the fact that I was no longer going to be a wife, and that I was no longer going to be a mother, at least to my boys, and
Mm-hmm.
at least in the physical aspect of it. And what I mean by that is I will always be their mother. My heart will always be open to them. The doors in my home will always be open to them. But I'm at that stage in my life where if you need to walk away from me, that's okay. That's okay, because I gave birth to you, but it doesn't mean I own you. It means you have your own life. You can decide for yourself what you need. And if being close to me is something that you don't need, I respect that and I honor that. So this first retreat gave me that. It gave me where I was saying goodbyes. Like I remember seeing just this gentleman in the room, and he gets up and walks away. But in me, as I was going through my process, the man that was there and walked away was actually my husband, or soon to be husband, walking away. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. And later on, in the retreat, there was one particular gentleman that was very young, almost about my children's age, my son's age, and I was looking at him, and he was one son, and then suddenly he became the other son, and they were smiling. And as they were smiling, I felt like that was an A-okay. That, Mom, we're going to be okay. Yes, thank you for the space. And then when I walked up the hill, there were three trees, and of course, these became my three children. And I was going to each one of them and giving them a hug and saying, I love you and I release you. I love you and I release you. I love you and I release you. And through all this, I was crying, but it was powerful to feel that, wow, what a message, to be okay with the fact that we're now mother and son, mother and daughter, living our own world, following our own universe, because in fact we are really in the same universe anyway. But like stars, they each are up there. So as humans, we're each down here. And that's the way that we are. So it was a beautiful retreat in that sense for me. That was the beginning of understanding that this was going to be my life, my
So I
life.
want to ask you about something that you brought up just a few minutes ago, because there's so much power in this. And it was that your family was saying, Mom, we think you have psychological issues. Mom, you need to go and see a psychiatrist. And a lot of us have real skepticism for some of these pharmaceutical medicines because they do tend to be numbing agents as opposed to healing agents. And so you chose to go the route of something that has profound healing capacity. And so, would you feel comfortable talking about what psychological symptoms you were able to move past through this process? Something that you feel, I don't know how you'd say it, evened you out, gave you perspective, took some weight off your shoulders that affected your ability to move through the world differently.
Well, I'm not sure if they would be called psychological symptoms, but I think one of the things after I moved here is I was thinking of myself as I'm not good enough. I don't belong. I'm not strong enough. I don't have enough courage. I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did something for years that I didn't really need to do, but I thought I needed to do. And part of it was because I didn't know that I needed to do. But stepping back a little bit, I think one of the things that I have realized through plant medicine is that plant medicine gave me the realization that the family, my family, you know, with my soon-to-be ex and myself and my 3 children, we were indeed a dysfunctional family,
Yeah. Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
I had to understand the fact that we were a dysfunctional family in order for me to be able to understand that I too came from a dysfunctional family. So I'm originally from Colombia, and my father, brought us here to America, and he was very strict. He was a very strict Catholic, and even though he was a strict Catholic, he also had somebody else that he had in Bogota. And yet he came as a Catholic and said, if you go to work and you don't come to church, then you need to go and confess. And then I was like, well, why aren't you confessing about what's going on in this side of the world, right? So a lot of that, and it's a lot of that was kind of, again, I think it was hidden under the rug. And I believe that for me, everything that happened in my relationship with my family was also hidden under the rug because I had expectations. I had expectations. My expectations as a woman was I'm going to get married. I'm going to live happily ever after. I'm going to have children. And I'm going to live happily ever after. I'm going to have a husband that I'm going to love for the rest of my life. And then when my 3 children are grown, I'm going to have a home where they can come with their friends, their husbands or wives, their children, my grandchildren, and we're going to live happily ever after. That is a psychological symptom because it's an expectation. When we have expectations, we are living in the future. We're not living in the present. And I had those expectations, thinking that I didn't have that as a child. So I wanted that for my family. And that was my expectation. That was the thing that I think was the greatest mistake that I made, was having those expectations, because when things fall apart, you blame yourself. And even when I was being a mother, even though he was part of um, part of our home. We were a family. He was working, he was commuting an hour and a half to go to work. And so I was really at home taking care of my children. I also was, in a way, forced to homeschool because I have severe chondromalacia on both knees. That basically means I have no cartilage in my knees.
Oh, wow.
So, while I was pregnant, and for years before that, I would have to get, I was on naproxen and Tylenol 3 to decrease the pain. And I was due to have shots in my knees when my first son was born, but he came early. So because of that, I had, I was disabled. I couldn't really work a 9 to 5 job. That's the reason why I wanted to find something else that I could do. That's the reason why I became a lactation consultant. That's the reason why I became a doula, because I did not want to grow up the same way my mother did. My mother, you know, always believed in the father is the one that brings the money in, and she, trusted him with everything, exactly what I did. And but I didn't want to be that way. And so I wanted to have my own job. And that's the reason why I became, everything else that I became. And but I think because of that, I grew to have a lot of doubt because on the one hand, we didn't have family. My soon-to-be ex is English. My family lived in Texas, and we lived in California, so we had no family per se. And it was very difficult to not have family. And, when I couldn't walk, I would crawl to the living room, and, my children would be around there. But because I was so close to them, I would do anything that I could. I would play with them on the floor. And so when it was time for them to go to school, it was a decision, where do we go? And because my partner was commuting an hour and a half, he said, I won't be home if they get sick or if you need help because I have a long commute. So that tells me that, okay, if you can't be there to help me and to help the children, to help the family, then what else can I do? So I figured I have a biochemistry degree, I can homeschool, and I decided, okay, let's just do this. And I didn't know it was going to be for as long as it ended up being. I wound up homeschooling my children till they were in the ninth grade. Once they decided to go to high school, I said, okay, you guys can go to high school, sure. But that was one of the things that I think happened a lot is that I didn't have faith in myself. I didn't believe in myself. And all of that really was brought up after the separation, where all of a sudden everything that I thought I wasn't. I was still made to believe I wasn't good enough. I was still made to believe that my disability was really not a disability, even though I could no longer use my now left arm. So it was interesting, really, that all of this came to be, even though this was very noticeable now. And so I do believe that that's the reason why God brought me here and brought me into this understanding, because there was a lot of dysfunction in my family. And I put that under the rug for many, many years so that which many women do, for the benefit of our children. There were many times that we came to thinking that our marriage would end. And, I just had to say, okay, I have to do this. We, for example, and this is, just a brief example of why it was so difficult for me, is like we both agreed we would never spank our children, and we didn't. Um, but he would pick them up to quote unquote put them in a safe place. And that would bring sometimes injury. And that happened to me once too. And that's when I realized that this is not right. You know, when I'm almost broke my back, this isn't right. And, but I still loved enough to say, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep trying. And so I put a lot of things under the rug. And so coming back into your question, when I did a retreat, I was under ayahuasca, and Mother Ayat reached out to me with all her love. As you know, she is the divine feminine. She is the one that connects us to our feelings. And in one of those retreats, and it was actually the well, I think it was probably two, but one of those retreats, it was the women's only retreat.
Okay.
And in that particular retreat, she said, Yvonne, you're strong. You're good enough. You know, you will be able to live your life by yourself. And she took me through the pregnancies. She took me through the arm. She took me through the verbal, emotional abuse, the physical abuse. She took me through until I was old, in my 80s, shaking. And I would shake, you know, and I would be there thinking, wow, is this what it's going to be like when I get older? And she was saying, yes, but look at you, you're walking with your own 2 feet. You're not going to be in a wheelchair. You're going to walk. And yes, you're going to be needing to sustain yourself, to have something there, but you will do it. You will make it. And I was an old lady in that ayahuasca experience, taking my time as I walked and shaking, you know, really literally. And she just showed me that whatever has been said, however you have felt, you are a powerful woman and you will do this. You don't need to have your partner or your children because you can do this yourself. You have that strength, you have that power. And that was beautiful.
You know what medicine doesn't say that is an SSRI. And so I want to kind of just rewind for the tweed lab coats in the room, because when you're talking about the things that you walked into this experience having, they were anxiety. That has an insurance billing code. Religious abuse. That has an insurance billing code. Depression, insurance billing code. Low self-worth. That has an insurance billing code. Your issues with your elbow, these different things, they all have insurance billing codes, just as the prescription of an SSRI. All of this stuff is billable through insurance, and that's why the system focuses on symptom management, because that's just how the system is actually built to do. And what you're discussing here is actual, real healing from the inside out.
Yes.
The heart, you, because one of the things that you talked about was when you talked a lot about social conditioning, what you were socialized to be as a young lady by your father, by your church, by your society, to be what your job was. And when you're trying to do that, I think you said that you're always living in the future when you're being that, because you're kind of shooting for an ideal instead of living
Yes.
with who it is that you actually are deep down.
Yes.
And so this profound direction of healing that the system doesn't even have the medical system, the Western system doesn't have the vocabulary to even do. And it's many Western practitioners who are now becoming very interested in all of this stuff because what you replaced a fractured identity with perspective. You replaced anxiety with an acceptance of your spirit. You
Mhm.
replaced religious abuse with proof of your own boundless spirit.
Mhm.
And these things are not in the DSM-5, which has its place, obviously, but it's also so beyond just symptom management so that you can go to the job that you hate. You know, it's
Mhm.
it's actual real healing from the soul that you got to have the gift of, reliving what those births meant to you in your life and how
Yes.
they contributed to you as a woman.
Yes.
And the ability to let go of your children
Mhm.
in whatever way you were struggling to do that before that realization. I mean, this is earth shattering in your life. And it's so huge. And so I guess my next kind of like direction that I want to go is I want to just understand a little from you about how you decided. This is obviously profound for you. And at a certain point, you decided to go through a shamanic initiation with Pachamama Sacred Paths, which is something that you're able to do through Pachamama Sacred Paths.
Well, that's another really wonderful question. And the reason for that has a lot to do with the fact that, if you recall, I went through or I'm going through a non-amicable divorce. And um, because I was disabled from my knees, having severe chondromalacia on both knees, I couldn't work a 9 to 5 job. It was not my choice to homeschool either, but out of the two, I had to decide what is better for me and for my children. And for me, not knowing from one day to the next whether I could get up and walk without pain, it was a decision to go ahead and homeschool. And then during that time, I was also a lactation consultant, but now this is something that I can do because I can do this on my time. If I schedule an appointment and suddenly I wake up and I can't walk, then it's like, okay, because I can just reschedule it. So as long as I could have something that I could do, and at that time, we were also two struggling young people with one of them, really wanted to pursue his career. And so it was like those are the sacrifices that we as parents are willing to make. We as women are willing to make these sacrifices so that our partner can succeed, so that we can retire together later once all of these challenges of having family and children go. And so when I moved to Southern California and realized I can't do anything now. As you know, I think I shared with you that I do John Barnes myofascial release. I'm an expert practitioner in that. And to be honest with you, out of all of the modalities, I mean, even the doctors, and talking about why I don't like doctors, this happens to be one of them. I was married to a toxicologist, and
Okay.
he did not believe in the fact that homeopathy works or anything like that. But I felt like I can't be on pills. I was on pills with my children before my children, and even during the pregnancy with naproxen and Tylenol 3, and it was tearing up my stomach. So when I was pregnant, I started doing yoga. That's how I got involved with yoga. So everything God has put it into my little lifespan to say, okay, so now you can pick up this, now you can pick up that. So that's why I picked up yoga, because I wanted to be able to have a life with my children. Not being able to run and walk and do things like that was not what I would call a life with my children. Being able to play with them when they were young, that was okay, but I knew that that would change eventually. And so what I did in with once I moved here and started doing retreats, I started learning a lot more about Pachamama Sacred Paths. And the initiation as a shaman was one of those things that I thought, maybe I could do this. I mean, I can't see patients, at least not yet. There may be a chance for me to later be able to, I mean, you can tell I can't even flip my hair, but for later for me to be able to see clients again as a myofascial release practitioner. But after this week, not being able to move, I'm like, I don't know if I can. But that was the decision why I thought, okay, what can I do now? At the time, I was 63, 62. What am I going to do? How am I going to support myself? This divorce is not amicable. I really don't understand. I don't know anything about money or anything like that. I don't understand where I'm at. They think I'm going to be okay. I'm like, I don't really know if I'm going to be okay. I don't like going to the medical community for my own treatments. And the only thing that was helping for me at the time was myofascial release. I had gone to, like I said earlier, to therapy on the rocks in Sedona for a 1 week intensive. I had gone to Portland for a 2 week intensive. I had found an excellent therapist who lives here. Her name is Kendra at Pink PT in Carlsbad. And she was able at the time to do home visits. Since then, she has stopped doing home visits. And I'm like going, oh my gosh, I wish you could be here, because, sometimes you just can't do it. And when you can't drive, you can't really go anywhere. So I believe that it was myofascial release that really helped me with the pain. It really allowed me, because now I can lift my arm. I can't touch the head, I can't touch my heart, but I can reach back. I can do all kinds of things. Now, I will say that that also has to do with the fact that I'm a yoga therapist. And I did start back in 2007 something that I called yoga myofascial release therapy. And so what that is a combination of Vini Yoga, which is founded by the American Vini Yoga Institute, Gary Crossall, and John Barnes myofascial release. So I used my own body, at the time it was my knees, to figure out how can I combine the John Barnes myofascial release self-treatment techniques with yoga. And I came up with yoga myofascial release. So that is something that I know I can do, but I had to set up this camera stuff. I started doing that as far as recording back in 2020. And but once I became where I couldn't move anything, I couldn't even pick up my camera, I couldn't pick up a computer, I couldn't really set up my lights. So that all took time. The pain of the CRPS went away in September, only September. And so I've been able to do a lot more with my hands up until my injury in my right hand, but I was able to do a lot more. But I thought, what do I do? How can I support myself? How can I live? And then I thought, gosh, plant medicine has helped me so much to regain my courage, to regain my strength, to regain my confidence. And because I do John Barnes myofascial release, there's something that we do in training and that we teach called unwinding. This arm has gone through some fabulous unwinding through Bufo and all through ayahuasca. And because you're in a different state of mind because of the sacraments, I'm going, wow, this is unwinding. And it basically, the arm just kind of starts moving all by itself and does all kinds of things. And Bufo was really gentle. It was kind of really unwinding, because when you unwind, your body does it for you. You don't do it. So this I'm doing myself, but your body can do this, and it's just like slow motion. That's called unwinding. And we learned that at the retreats, and John Barnes teaches it. And I recognized that in Bufo when my arm was kind of, I was like, here, and then my arm was doing just all kinds of beautiful movements. And then in ayahuasca, when I was doing the Hampeg back in Mexico, this arm was moving wildly. So I knew that it can move, and perhaps more, perhaps I do need more treatments, more weekly treatments, that's more intensives, and I'm planning on doing that as well, because I do believe in the myofascial work, and I do believe that it's important. But anyway, going back, I'm thinking, well, what do I do? And so I thought, I'm going to do the shamanic initiation training, because maybe I can become a shaman. Maybe I can lead retreats. And then I'm like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. Yeah, maybe I can. Because to be honest with you, sitting here in front of you would have been something that I not done retreats, I would have never thought about doing. I was way too shy. And at my age, thinking to start videos, like I was like, no. I mean, I had to be perfect. I had to have my lights. I had to have a special camera, the whole 9 yards, because I kept thinking, if I'm going to start something at my age, I need to make sure that I look professional.
Right?
It wasn't about anything else. So then I thought, maybe I can do this. And I started with address and the module 1. And it was profound. Remember, I'm a Christian. And as a Christian, I highly believe in prayer. With Pachamama Sacred Paths, we did despachos. And despachos, and we also did rituals. And rituals
Sorry,
like cutting.
can you explain for the listener what despachos is?
Yes, let me go through the ritual first.
Okay.
Okay, so then I'll do the despacho. So a ritual is, like, for example, we can do cutting of threads. So you take threads and you start cutting the threads, and you start cutting. So for example, the male energy, male memory. I'm not good enough for him. Cut that off. I'm not good enough for him. Cut that off. So you start cutting whatever we are working on at that particular time, like the ritual with the male energy, or and it's not just husbands and sons, but also fathers, also people that have harmed you in one way or another, that you have decided not to say anything to anybody about, because that also was brought under the rug, to save your sanity and to make sure that your expectation was reached of being the perfect person. And so I started doing rituals. And when you cut all these cords, and you can also prepare a despacho. So cutting all these cords would put me in a place where now I open and create a despacho. So a despacho, I lay down a beautiful gift wrapping paper, and I put all that negative hucha energy, all the things that were hurting me, all the things that were causing pain and discomfort. And once you do the ritual, and the ritual is such a beautiful way to cut things that you no longer serve you. So, and it's a tangible prayer, for yourself. So once you do that, I create a despacho, or can create a despacho, where I put all that hucha, all that negative energy into it. And then I throw other things, whatever, corn, for abundance, prosperity, anything that my heart is desiring. And I make a package of that. I wrap it up, and then I either give it to Mother Earth, or put it in the ocean, or I burn it. And that way I am creating a tangible prayer for myself with the intention of Mother Earth and the cosmos, universe, God, source. And I'm creating this package as a way to communicate and make this prayer more tangible. And I thought that was beautiful because I pray all the time, but to be able to have a tangible prayer was absolutely beautiful. So I did that, and with Pachamama Sacred Paths, I learned about all that. And each time that we did a ritual, it was more powerful. It was more profound. Um, we let go of the scientific paradigm. Oh, that was an important one for me because I
Yes.
was a scientist. My partner is a scientist. We
Yes.
always clashed in regard to I wanted homeopathy, I wanted myofascial release. He referred to myofascial release, even though for years he knew that he was helping. He referred to that as advanced massage therapy, and I just couldn't believe it because it is none of that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was letting go of that scientific paradigm, letting go of the religious paradigm, letting go of
Yes.
the political paradigm. So really letting go of all of that so that you can come into yourself. You can really come into that center of who you really are, and who you were meant to be in this world. And that was a beautiful, beautiful message that Andres delivers through the initiations that um, is just profound. It goes so beautifully hand in hand with each of the retreats, and it really helped me grow as a person, and it helped put the retreats, everything that I had learned in the retreats, that all the courage and the strength and um, the love, and all of a sudden I'm coming to this initiation, and I'm all in all these classes, and I'm thinking, wow, now I understand. Now I understand. Now I believe it. Now I can see it. Now I can feel it. So it really brought, for me anyway, the retreats into a much deeper understanding of Andean cosmology, and or Andean cosmology, and of the beauty that shamanism is. Shaman. My definition of being a shaman is somebody who loves, understand, loves, wants to love. So being a shaman is love at the purest level, and it's also sometimes translated or said it is the one that teaches the human how to be a human being. And so I don't really know, but I know that now I believe in the fact that I am from love. I gave and give love, and the universe is love. Everything around me is love. And that universe can be source, can be God, can be Jesus, can be whatever label you want to give, because it is about you and how you feel with eternity, with divinity, with Jesus, with the Buddha, with Christ, with, it's your own label, but it's really about love. And we talk about love in every religion.
And I don't want to leave that just simply there. Also, the love for yourself and how you were created to be. And I'd like to just kind of give the floor to you here for a moment to just speak directly to that woman out there who is over 50, dealing with the things that women are dealing with. What would you tell her, woman to woman, about this time in life?
Wow. That's a profound question. What would I tell you about this time in life? It's exquisite. It's exquisitely painful. It is probably the most painful event that I have gone through in my life. But at the same time, it has been the realization that I am woman. I am woman. I was able to bring kids into this world. I can't do that. And I can't reject that part of me now because I can't. You can't. You were able to be pregnant. Whichever way you were able to be pregnant, you were able to carry this baby. So yes, your belly grew. And as it grew, so did the stretch marks. Your body changed, but it changed because you wanted to give life to this world. And you did. Your breasts changed when you got pregnant. And you were able to breastfeed if you chose to breastfeed. It wasn't that the stretch marks because you were breastfeeding. That's a myth. It was because you were pregnant. That's where the changes begin. When we decide we want to carry a baby, that's when the changes begin. And you know what? Those changes cannot happen unless you have your cycles. I know because my daughter was diagnosed as a Turner syndrome baby. And that meant that maybe she was not going to be able to have babies. And that broke my heart. But I believed in prayer. And through prayer, I know that she was healed. So she is my seal because she was healed. So it is about giving birth. How lucky are we? How lucky are we to be able to hold a baby and to give that baby our breast? How lucky are we to be able to bring life into this world? And then we take care of our kids. And if you're going through a divorce, sometimes I want to say, give your children up. Why? Because it is the responsibility of both parents to raise this child. And if you don't give up your children during the divorce, there's so much freedom that you're giving the other side. But you need that freedom too. Because once you go into menopause and you go through all these changes, there's, oh, I wish I had. But those wish you had don't come back. They don't come back. Now, I'll say this, but I don't know if I could even, if was going through a divorce when my children were little, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I would have been able to do that. But now they've decided to leave anyway. So we don't know what the future holds. But what I can tell you in all sincerity is that every single moment that I had as a mom is right here. It's right here. Yes, it's here too, but it's here. And it is that carries me forward in knowing that life is what it is. You're going through a menopause and you are no longer able to menstruate. Give honor to that. In the same way that maybe you gave honor to when your cycle first started, give honor to the fact that your cycle has stopped. Because now you can give yourself the care that you gave so often to others. It is time for you to take care of you. It doesn't mean that you don't care for your husband or you don't care for your children. But it is time to say, I am worth it. I am woman. Hear me roar. I am a mother. I will always be a mother. Even if you don't have children, you're still a mother. You still mother because you are a woman. And that's important to keep in mind. Are you a mother to that dog? Are you a mother to that cat? Yes. Do you mother your husband? Yes. You're still a mother. And don't ever think that you don't, because you do. Change is hard. Divorce is hard. It is very hard to know that suddenly your world has changed. All these years you thought, for me it was 34 years. Here I thought I was working for retirement. Suddenly I'm put in a battlefield. And now what do I do? How do I continue on with my life? The way that you do that is by loving yourself. Because this isn't your fault. It's not his fault. It is the way that it happened. So you can't blame one person and the other, but you can certainly give yourself the love that you deserve, because it is all about love. And no matter what you're going through, remember, women are there to support you. We know what you're going through, regardless of what that is. Mama Aya is the feeling sacrament. That's what we know as feminines, the feel. So now it's time to really embrace both your feminine and your masculine qualities. You know, one of the things that I used to say is that why? Why did I do this? You know, why was I both mother and father to my children? And now I've realized that I wasn't mother and father to my children. I was using my masculine energy and my feminine energy for my children. Not that I was being both mother and father, but that I was using both the masculine and the feminine. And now I believe that because of my path, I'm going to be better balanced and understand that when I say, no, don't touch me, that's my masculine energy. So give yourself that. Love yourself. Because we don't take anything else with us. We don't take the jewelry. We don't take the clothes when we're gone. So love yourself from now until God calls you home.
Thank you on behalf of all of the people who are, all of the women who are going to listen to this and have their lives enriched by that. And this
I
is the
hope so.
part in the podcast where I tell you what I love about you. And
Thank you.
Yvonne, what I love about you is your deep, 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 abiding humility. The the piece of you that for several days before the recording of this podcast, you were nervous because you weren't exactly sure that you had something of great value to offer for the period of time that we were going to be together. And the fact that you bring to the table such a profound meaning, that you're able to deliver such a life-changing message to women who are in such need of that kind of hope, that kind of personal esteem, in need of the reassembly and rediscovery of what they are in their value at this space in life, and that you bring it with such incredible grace and power.
Thank you.
It is so wonderfully impressive. And the way that you share that, the way that you have innovated yourself through this, the way that through your life you were socially conditioned to be pushed into a corner over this way, and that at a certain point you went, no, I can't be in that corner anymore. I have to really dig
Yeah.
in to what God wants me to be, and that you grabbed it with such total commitment and total courage that you now are able to be in a position where you take women and you help them feel that courage inside themselves, see the value of themselves, and appreciate the the way in which the imperfections within them are born through incredible sacrifice, incredible strength,
Mm.
incredible personal spiritual transcendence. In that, your message here is beyond just something that can help somebody have a better day. These are eternal lessons that are so quintessentially defined within the feminine spirit that our society has filtered away from what it means to be a woman, that our society has taken men and softened them out, that our society has taken women and tried to make them into men. And you are bringing this
Mm.
incredible message of just be grateful for your femininity. Be grateful for what your body is and does and how it changes and how it gave you life and your children life. And so I want to thank you for your incredible graceful passion in being able to bring a message like this that is so nourishing to women who need this so badly. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very heartfelt, and you're right. You know, it was very difficult for me to do this podcast, and but I'm glad I did because it's you know, the message has to be out there for us to be able to shine, to be able to find that connection that we really do have with Pachamama. She is our mother, you know, and I think that's one of the things that I've learned a lot through Pachamama Sacred Paths is that it is, you know, we have this love. And so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Can you tell people how to get a hold of you?
Well, that's a very good question. Um, I'm I don't know. I mean, you can reach me through myofficialrelease.com,
There we
and you
go.
can also reach me through the American Vina Yoga Institute. I do have a myofascial release yoga myofascial release webpage, but because I don't know how to use Facebook or Instagram, I'm not really sure what's going on with it. So maybe at some point, at some point, it will actually. I mean, Andres has said he'll help me, so maybe at some point I can get it on. You can even reach me through Pachamama Sacred Paths, and one way or
Excellent.
the other, you know, I will be able to get your message. And then, you know, you can always email me at ybannister@yahoo.com.
Terrific. Terrific.
Yes,
And we'll have that information in the description. And again, thank you so much for being such an incredible guest on Mindful
thank you,
Mutiny.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. Leave a comment and do a review of Mindful Mutiny so that we can keep bringing awesome guests to you. And remember that in a lifetime, there's more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest form of yourself is the most rewarding thing that you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of you. Now
Yes.
go be something great.